Hey everybody, this is Wisdom from Coderversity. In today's video, I am going to be teaching you async await in JavaScript. What are the objectives? You will learn how to use async await in JavaScript to make API requests. You will also learn how to use async await to build clean and clearer code. Your code will be readable, and then at the end of the day we will build a simple weather app using Next.js, which is a JavaScript framework. Now let's take a look at some definitions. Asynchronous programming, what is it all about? It is simply executing tasks without blocking the main thread, allowing code to run simultaneously. Meaning that because JavaScript is actually a single thread programming language. So async await allows JavaScript to perform, because what that means is that JavaScript can only perform a task at a time. But because of the async await, it allows it allows your code that you write to be able to wait for some task to be done while other tasks are still running, so that at the end of the day, the code doesn't break. For example, you can be making API requests, expecting some data response from the server, and then with the use of await, the program will wait until that response is received, and then other tasks will continue, and then the program doesn't break. So async await is a modern way to undo asynchronous operations, making code more readable and structured, like I earlier mentioned. So what will you need for this project? You will need to install Node.js and Next.js. I will guide you to handle that. I will give you a link to a set of instructions that will become a guide for you. And you will also need to have a code editor. My preferred code editor is Visual Studio Code. That's what I'm going to use for this project. Also, you will need to sign up with OpenWeather to obtain a weather API key that we'll be using for the weather app that we'll be building at the end. What should you expect from this project? At the end, what should be the learning outcome? The learning outcome should be you have the ability to explain asynchronous programming and its benefits, build and fetch data using async await. You're also going to develop a functional weather app using Next.js. If you are happy about this project, join me, let's dive in. I'm on Visual Studio Code and I have two files created already. I have a JS file and I have an HTML file, the index.html and main.js. Even though our focus is async await, it is a good thing for us to see how things were done before the advent of async await, how things were done in the world of JavaScript. Now, before the advent of async await, you will use what is called callbacks, and then later on there was promises. So these were the way multiple tasks were handled. Remember, we said JavaScript is a single thread programming language, meaning that it can only take a task at a time. Alright, let's take a look at a few examples of how callbacks were done and promises as well. Now, callbacks, if I were to use callback to perform, let's say, about 5 tasks, I want to have 5 functions that will perform 5 tasks for me. Now, this is what I will do. Basically, let's use the JavaScript set timeout function, the built-in function. Let's use that to illustrate this. So, for instance, I have to set interval. Let's say set interval, and then this is how you will usually do it, and then this will be, you have to pass the time, for instance 1000 millisecond, that it will have to delay for the function inside it to run and handle its own task before it now moves to the next one. So the way you will do this is to chain function together or to each other. For instance, this function that I have written now, this first function, I will have to chain another one. For instance, the first one should console or log the first task. Let's make it to log something to the console by saying console or log. Let's write first task done. All right, so inside this same function I'm going to chain another function, and that will also have its own task. So this is how you will literally handle as many tasks as you want to handle. The challenge with this approach is that it usually lead to what is normally termed or commonly termed as callback L, so which is a limitation. So that's what led to the next approach, which is the promises, which we're going to talk about very soon. But let me just quickly finish up with this illustration. This will be the second, okay, second task done, second task done. All right, inside this second function now, we have to chain another function. So set timeout. We can actually copy this, but then I just want to take it one after the other so you can really code along with me. All right, this is going to be the next one, and just like we had previously, oops, just like we had previously, we will also console.log something here. Let's see, this is the okay, console.log the third task done. All right, let's just copy. You can highlight this and then hold on to your shift key, the alternate key, and then down arrow key, and that will copy it for you, to duplicate it for you. Then this will edit this to be the fourth task done. Remember we said 5 tasks, that's what we wanted to carry out. So this is fourth task done. Then let's duplicate it one more time, and that will be the fifth task done. So let's take a look at what the result will be on the browser console. So that's why I actually created this file, index.html. It has nothing inside, just the HTML boilerplate and then the JavaScript tag, the script tag that is connected to our JS file, so that we can view what we are doing at the browser console. So now let's go to the browser console to see the result of what we have done so far. I'm going to quickly open to that file and go over to the console, and right at the console, all right, seems okay. Right now I'm at the browser console, and you can see the first task done, second task done, third task done, fourth, fifth, and so on. You can see the function that we chain to each other. They actually depend on each other, and this might lead to what is called callback hell, in the sense that code become complex. You can't really understand it easily, so you have to you need a lot of effort to understand the code, because it's not really going to be readable, easily readable. So that's why callbacks are limited. Let's go to promises. So to use promise, you can use it like this. You usually create a const, a variable, and then let's call it my promise, and then let's equate it to a promise object as promise. And then usually promise will receive two parameters, resolve and reject. So, and then the arrow function. So here let's create a variable, a const, and set it to false. That's an error. Set it to false. So let's also right now we're going to check if the if not error. So let's do something. If there was no error, so I want to log the I want to resolve. So we'll use the resolve parameter, resolve. Then what is going to be logged? That's yes, promise. Yes, a promise has been resolved. Exactly. So if else, if there was an error, so it will now use the reject parameter. So reject, and that will be no, promise is yet to be resolved. So if we look at this resolved, let's look at this at a console. All right, we can't see it now because we need to log the value of the promise by using the denables. So the way we chain promise together is to use the then keyword. So we need to now call the promise, that's my promise dot then. So you pass in the value parameter, and then let's log the value of the promise. So log console.log 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 value. So let's go to the console now to see what we have. So you can see yes, promise has been resolved. So we can also update the value by returning the value plus a string. Let's say promise has been resolved right now. So let's chain another then value. This one will now be new value. So we can pass in the arrow function, and then we'll now log the new value. So let's see what the new value is. So we'll see yes, promise has been resolved right now. That's the new value. Interesting. But then another challenge here is that you have to keep chaining other tasks as you want to have, like we did just now. And then let's see how we can catch the error. If this were to be true and we run the code, let's check the console, you will get on cuts, meaning that we didn't catch the error. So there is a possibility of catching the error. We can catch the error by using the dot catch. So we'll pass in the error parameter, and then you can log the error. By simply console.log or console.error, console.log error. Let's see what the error is. See, no promise is yet to be resolved. So that is promise. As you can see, if we continue chaining one then to another, you can see very soon it will become very complex and very difficult to read and understand. So let's quickly look at that. Will lead us to our main focus, which is the async await. Let's see how we can use async await to make API requests. Already I have registered with OpenWeather. I've created my account with them. You can also go ahead and sign up. When you do so, they will send you your API key and then the URL that you can use to make the API request. So if you do that, you'll get this message. Like I already said, you don't need to use my API key. As a matter of fact, I will delete it after this lesson. So you should go ahead and create your own. They have a free tier, so you can use that as well. So, but then let's quickly see how we can make API request using async await. Now, one thing that I need you to understand here is that using async await, you need to use the keyword async before the function. That's what makes it possible to use await within the function. So you need to begin with async first and then the function. If we are to use this one, but we can also use the arrow function, but let's use this, and then it will be, the name of the function will be fetch weather, and then we can now, one thing to note is that while using this, we need to get the API key. Like I mentioned before, I already got mine. So you can just pause the video right now and get your API key. And just a moment, if this tutorial has been helpful or or you are happy about it, please, this is the time to subscribe and like the video. Also share the video so you can like the video so you can receive more updates as we publish them. So all right, go ahead and get your API key, and then we come back for the weather. All right, we are set for our weather app, and we are going to see how we're to use async await using Next.js. Next.js is a React framework, and you can use it to build powerful web applications, and it has a lot of features that is quite interesting, and it's been amazing. So let's get started. Like I earlier mentioned, you need to install Node.js, the JavaScript runtime. You also need, you can go to Node.js, just Google Node.js, and then you get to be directed to where you can get it downloaded and installed into your system, like Node.js download, something like this. Once you get here, you'll be redirected to the installation page where you can just download. Of course, it will automatically choose your OS. If you're on Windows or Mac, it will detect that automatically so you can download. So, and again, you also need to sign up for OpenWeather. I already signed up, and then I have two API keys. Please don't use my API keys. They have free tier. You can create yours. I will delete these API keys immediately after this video, so you don't need to use them. You can create yours. Is just sign up, and then they will send you the detail to your email. You will receive an email telling you about your API key, and so you have to actually confirm your email address. And once you have done that, they will email your API key to you and the URL that you are meant to use to make the request, which I'm also going to show you. So let's get started. How do we start Next.js? All right, let's go back to the official website of Next.js. So an instruction is here under installation. It says this is the command that we have to run. That is npx create dash next dash app at latest, which I am going to just copy right now, and then I will go over to VS Code. I already have a project created named web app 3, and then my terminal is open as well. I will then paste that command. After that command, I will have to give my application a name. I choose to give it my app. Let's call it weather app. Weather app. All right. So once this is done, I can hit the enter key, and then it will start creating the app for me. Of course, it's going to give me some prompts, which I'm supposed to choose an option. So number one is asking if we are to use TypeScript. No, the answer is no. This project does not, the scope of this project does not include TypeScript. So I'll say no. Then Xlinks, no. Tailwind CSS, of course, we want to use Tailwind CSS to style up our weather app. So I will select yes. Then if I need the source directory, no. App router, yes. Then no. So after this, it will create the application for us. Then let's just give it few minutes. It will soon be ready depending on the speed of your machine, the speed of your computer. So once it is done, we can now start working. So I will just pause the video and come back once it is done. All right, our project is ready. The installation is done. So right now you can see the success message. You say created weather dash app at this location, and then a Git repo has been initiated for us for the project. So how do we start right now? I need to change directory to the weather dash app. So by using this command on the command line, let's say cd weather dash app. So I'm already there. So right now I need to start the development server using this command npm run dev. So once this is done, it will start the development server where we can then go to the browser through this URL here and then see what's next has to offer us. So right now I'm going to just do a quick introduction to Next.js. This is the Next.js files. All these files were created for us by default. And right in this app folder, we have a couple of other files that we will be using. Right now, I just want to maintain focus on the page.js and global.css, which is where this global.css is where our, all right, we are set to start working with the Tailwind CSS. Let's even see what the weather, the information is. Let's fetch the information on the in the component level. Already we have our weather state variable up here, so we can make use of it because we are already setting the data coming from the API to the weather with this line. That's what this line is doing. So let's go ahead and access it. We can access it by using curly brackets, then we use the weather variable. Then we're going to use the question mark to make the component wait until the data is available, and then we can say dots, whatever is available there. That's the name of the country that has been set as default. That's London. So let's go to the browser and check if we will see London. That's right. So this is London. It means it's working. So let's quickly go and then style up everything to look beautiful. So very quickly, we're going to have, already we have a div. This div is going to have some tailwind classes. Now in React, you don't use class like regular CSS. What you use is class name. So we're going to use class name equal to the classes I'm going to be using now are tailwind classes, tailwind CSS classes. So you can see the tailwind IntelliSense is the one suggesting all this for me. So you need it. It's very, very handy, very useful. So we're going to use main dash screen so that it will cover a reasonable height. That's the main dash h dash screen. That's what it does. If you hover your mouse on it, it will show you the actual CSS styles. That's main dash height is 100 VH. So that is what it does. And we're going to have a couple of classes. We're going to have flex. We're going to have items dash center. All right. We're going to have justify center, justify center, and then we're going to also have the background as bg dash gray dash 100. That's the shade of the color, bg dash gray dash 100. So you can just choose it here. So we're done with that div. Then the next one will be directly inside of this div. We'll have a inner div, an inner div. That will be, let's just create the div, and then there will be some tailwind classes. So one of the first is going to be, sorry, there's a mistake here, Ctrl Z. The first one is going to be max width, max dash width. That is the maximum width that can be allowed is MD, that's medium. So then width full, we want the full width. Then BG is going to have background that is white. Then shadow dash MD, rounded for the edges, rounded dash LG, padding 6 units. So now this is the inner div. So right inside the inner div we want h1 that will carry some write-up that says weather app. All right, so the h1 is going to have some classes as well. The first one is text. Okay, let's use a class name first. Then the first class there should be text dash XL, or rather text dash 3XL. That is to make the size of the font bigger. Then font dash bold. This one is to make the font bold. That's the font style. Then we have text dash center. That's to centralize the text. Then we have text blue. That's the color of the text blue, and then the shade of 500. Then we have margin bottom, that's MB6. Let's take a look at what we have done so far in the browser. Fantastic. It's still, the color hasn't reflected yet. Let me see why that is happening. Text blue, I think it's still reloading. Let's reload it. Alright, perfect. This is how it should be. So let's continue with the design. So just below the H1, the first thing is to do a conditional rendering. Now in Next.js, you can use the data that you have set in the state. So already we set weather in the state, so we can access weather. So whatever weather carries, and we can find out if the weather data is available or not by simply using the itinerary operators. So right now I can say curly brackets weather, then question mark, is the weather information available? If it is, then I want to do something, which is the reason for this bracket open and close. So else, that will be this column, do something else if the condition is not true. So this is the itinerary operators that I talked about. The question mark is simply saying if the weather data is available, then do something within that bracket open and close. Then if it is not, do something else. So that is just why we have that. So the first bracket, within that first bracket, we want to render the weather data. And within this one, we're going to render a loading state that will show that the data is loading. So let's undo the loading state first. We're going to put a p tag within here, and this error is showing because we don't have anything in the first. Let's undo this one first, then we'll come back to the loading state. So in the first one, there will be a div open and close. All right, div open and close. Within that div, we will have okay, for that div we need to have some tailwind class, and that is space dash y, that is vertical space. Anytime you see y is referring to the vertical, then x referring to the horizontal. So the vertical axis 4, so there should be space between items listed vertically. So we want the space to be 4. So that's the units there. So after that, we need to render h2 directly inside that div. That's h2, and then within the h2 we need to have the name of the country. So you will need to use curly braces to get the name of the country, whether that's name, and then we also need to render the unique, the abbreviation to the country. That's within the curly brackets. All right, within the curly brackets, within the curly brackets, we can have weather dot csat country, right? So once this is done, let's go to the next thing. But for this h2, 2, we need some tailwind classes, tailwind CSS classes. Class name, and that would be, the first one is text XL. That's still talking about the font size, text XL. And then the next one is font dash semi-bold. Next one is text dash center, which means you should centralize the text. So text dash center. Then directly under that, we need to have another div. And this div is going to house two things. That's why we're going to use the class flex within it. So div open and div close. Now within this div, we're going to have the image for the weather, showing the condition of the weather, and then we're going to have the weather temperature, the temperature of the area. So we're going to have that, we're going to have img and a p tag. So the first one is the img. Let's undo that one first, then we'll come back to the p tag. So img, oops, img src, so it's going to be an object. Oops. So weather, all right, we need to use backtick within here because we need some string. src, then backtick, then we need to enter the following: http colon // open weather map.org /img/wn/ the $, curly brace, and weather.weather and we're going to select the first one with the key of 0. So we're going to select the first one with the index of 0. Then we need to also add description. So at the end, we'll close the image tag. So once that is done, oh, there is a mistake, not description, please. After that, we need icon. Then outside the curly brace .png. Exactly. So directly under the image, we need a p tag, and that will be containing the weather temperature, the temperature. So we can simply do that by weather dot main dot temp. Then let's use C here for Celsius. So we need to also add the classes for the p tag. We need to use text for Excel, font dashboard, and margin left 4. So class name text dash for Excel, font dashboard, then we will need margin left -4. Let's take a look at what we have done so far at this point. And before we move further within the first bracket open and close, let's undo the else by adding a simple loading. Yeah, something like this. We can use a spinner, but I just used to use a write-up that's loading. So this will just be showing loading. We need to also use some tailoring classes there, and that is text center and text gray 600. So text center to centralize the text gray shade of 600. Let's take a look at this. So this will be our app right now. Okay, while it is loading, you see this loading. Once the data is available, it populates the data immediately. So we need class name for this div, the div that is housing the image and the p tag. So let's quickly add that. Class name. So class name, the classes there is going to be, first is going to be flex, secondly justify center, and thirdly item center. So flex, justify center, then items center. All right, so we're done with that. Then the next thing we need to do is to go under this particular div now and add a few other information about the weather. This time around, we want a div that will have the grid system. You know, in Tailwind, there is what is called a grid system, where you can spread items in a grid. So just take a look at what we're about to do. So we're going to use the grid classes to make items, to spread items in a grid. You just need to use the grid classes. That's the grid dash column. You need to specify what it will be for the small size screen. So you want it to be 1, or rather 2, not 1. Let's make it 2. Then gap is 4, the gap that exists between them. So after that, we need to come to the items within the div, the items that will be spread in grid. So the first one is feels like. Then we put a strong tag. Within that strong tag, we can just use weather dot. First of all, we need to check again. Weather dot. Already we've checked up there. Weather dot weather. Weather dot weather. Then use the index 0, and then dot description. So after that, the next thing, I think we can just copy this, hold shift key, alternate key, and down arrow key, copy it 3 more times. So we can just edit the contents within the divs. Before we copy, we can actually use Tailwind classes so that it will all carry the same. So the class there is text gray 700. Text gray 700 exactly. So we can now copy or duplicate the lines. Just position your cursor here and then you duplicate 3 times. So the next one, instead of feel likes, in fact this feel likes is wrong, just corrected it now. Then for the feel likes, instead of description, we're going to have to change this. It's not description. So weather dot main, instead of weather dot main dot feels like. Exactly. So this one is good for description, just that we need to put a different write up. That's weather. Alright, so the third one should now be humidity. Then the humidity should not be description, it should be weather.main.humidity. Weather.main.humidity. Then the last one is wind speed. Wind speed. That will need to weather.wind.speed. So weather.wind.speed. Wind.speed. And outside here we can use m/s. Then for the humidity we need percentage sign. Alright, so I think that is it. Our weather app is done. So let's take a look at it. Again, I'm going to push the code to GitHub so you can have a look at it. In case you have any issues with yours, you can check, you can cross check with mine. So this is our weather app and it's working. But there is one more thing. The state or the city is just London. What if you want to create an input for a user to change the city? So that can be done by creating an input box right below the weather, the title, the h2. So right now we're going to just use input, which the type is going to be text. All right, so placeholder to be enter city dot dot. Then we can close the input tag. Then we need to pass in some classes, some tailwind classes. Apart from the classes, we also need on change events that will track whatever the user is entering or inputting into the box. So right now the tailwind classes that we're going to use for the input is as follows. First of all, we want to make the input to have some border. So border -2, that's the thickness of the border, the weight of the border. Then border dash, the color of the border now should be border dash gray, or rather let's use blue, blue dash 500. Then we also need the edges to be round, so rounded MD. Then we also need the padding. We need to use padding X4 and padding Y4 as well. So and then we need the height of the area to be 10. Then the width should be full. So I think this will do. Let's take a look at it and see what we can do with it. Okay, perfect. So right now we're going to use the onChange event within it. So to use onChange events, we need to first of all create the state variable that will track the user inputs. So okay, already we've created that, which is city, and then we can now make use of set city. So within it, we can use the onChange event, and that is going to come within the inputs. Just use onChange. We're going to use a function that has a event parameter, and then an arrow function that now sets city, and then we're going to set it we're going to set it to target value that will track whatever the user is entering. So whatever the user has entered, we're going to use that to set the state. So, and then the state is already part of our query. So the next thing now is we want to make sure that the use effects will run whenever the state changes. We're going to now put the state as a dependency to make the use effects to run whenever a new state has been entered by the user. So right now, if we come here and then I impute while it's loading, okay, if I impute let's say Germany, is going to give me the related info for Germany. So you can see how that works. If I impute Nigeria, see, to give me the info for Nigeria. So it works as expected. So alright, let me know your comments, and if you find this video helpful, hopefully you find it helpful, and if so, please like the video, subscribe if you are new to the channel so you can get updates on our new videos. Thank you. Bye for now.